Okay, hi everybody. So finally got around to doing some videos for the digestive system. And basically, instead of making like anatomy videos and physiology videos, I'm just going to put everything together. And hopefully that doesn't confuse everybody. What I mean by that is I kind of did something similar in office hours as to what I'm going to do here, but I'm going to modify it slightly. So in office hours, we did a timeline for all the digestive system functions. And this time I'm going to make a timeline, but I'm going to use my parts of the digestive system in order and then go through what is the anatomy and what are the functions for each one of these. So you can see I have like the mouth, the esophagus, I'm sorry, the pharynx, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestines, large intestines. There's kind of a big gap in some of these places. And that's because, yes, we're going to spend less time utilizing our mouth, our pharynx, and our esophagus. Food will spend longer time in the stomach, even longer in the small intestine, and then also spend time in the large intestine. So I kind of spaced it similar to how long it might take substances to pass through our digestive system. And then what I'm going to do is for each one of these intervals, I'm going to write a little bit on my timeline, and then I'm going to create a small chunk of a video for each part of the timeline. Okay. So for the mouth, we're going to see we have ingestion. This is primary function. The mouth is also going to do parts of deglutition. So here we should have the deglutition, and this is going to be the buccal phase. And then for the pharynx, we'll do the next part. Okay, so let's do the video for the mouth and for the buccal phase. And I have to move my picture over a little bit. So the mouth is going to be the oral cavity, essentially. And it's the first part of the gut tube. The mouth is going to be made up of the lateral sides or the cheek. The superior portion of the mouth is right here. This is the hard palate. Okay. And the hard palate is made up of, I hope you guys remember, the maxilla and palatine bones. And then towards the back here, there's going to be some soft tissue that comes off. This is actually the soft palate. Okay. The hard palate basically separates the nasal cavity from the oral cavity. So right underneath the hard palate is the oral cavity. And then you can see this is the tongue muscles right there. Part of the oral cavity includes the teeth as accessory organs, and they're going to be part of what the mouth is supposed to do. So all these muscles in the mouth, or really that are part of helping us move our tongue, are going to be essential here for the very first couple of things. Well, number one, I guess we can write like, I'll just write it right here. Number one, you have ingestion. That means you have to open your mouth. So you want to think about what muscles are going to help you with opening your mouth and then closing your mouth, because after ingestion, you have to start doing chewing, which is actually part of the buccal phase. You have to open and close your mouth and use your teeth to grind food. So you want to go back through and remember which teeth we have. What do they do? Where are they located? Okay, because this is all part of that buccal phase. You're going to have salivary glands that are going to produce saliva. So teeth are actually part of the accessories. And then we also have some salivary glands as well. Okay. Saliva is going to include salivary amylase. And that salivary amylase, remember, it's going to take carbs and it's going to break them into smaller carbs. I know you're like, what? like big chains of carbohydrates, you break them into smaller chains. You haven't actually cut them all the way into glucose yet, or small, very, very small sugars, simple sugars. You're just breaking the bigger complex carbohydrates into smaller ones in the oral cavity. The purpose of the salivary glands and saliva is also to moisten and lubricate food so that your tongue, which is also, I would think, part of the accessory portion of the mouth, is going to help you manipulate food. And here you're going to create a ball-like set of substances called the bolus. Okay. So hopefully you remember you have three salivary glands, like this big one here on the lateral side of the cheek above masseter. This is the parotid gland. Then there's one underneath the mandible. Actually, there's two parotids, there's two under the mandible, and there's two sublingual underneath the tongue. These are submandibular. And then the one under the tongue is sublingual. So you see how the parotid and submandibular are more like superficial. So they have to have longer ducts to put saliva in your mouth, whereas the sublingual has these ducts right underneath the tongue. And this is why if you give a patient something to dissolve in their mouth, sometimes it's best to put it under the tongue. It'll help create more saliva. So you create the saliva, and now you're going to chew. Your tongue is going to help you move food, and helps you move food forward towards your teeth and against your hard palate. It's also going to start this whole buccal phase of deglutition, where essentially your tongue muscles, your tongue plus some muscles, are going to move the bolus up to the hard palate. And then it's going to move it towards the soft palate. So the soft palate's going to start to rise a little bit. It hasn't risen maybe all the way. And essentially, after the soft palate, the bolus will be like right here. It's going to move towards the oropharynx. Okay. And that should be the first part of what's happening in your mouth as you chew, or the first part of what's happening in your gut tube as you chew and you start to swallow. So we're going to see that the next part is going to be part of the pharynx. Okay, so we're going to go through what happens at the pharynx.